There are some hints that Jesus was really into long-term planning. For instance, he once said, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." It doesn't get any more long-term than that. And these words might also help us to understand what has been called the parable of the shrewd manager, found in Luke chapter 16. This one bothers people. In it, Jesus seems to commend a man who cooked the books, so to speak, so that others would owe him a favor later. The situation was this. One day his master came to him and said, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer." Basically, he was fired. Exactly why is a bit of a mystery. Whatever it was, he was going to be out of a job soon. His final task was to give an account of his management, meaning he had to turn over the books to his master so his job could be given to someone else. He should have planned better for his retirement, probably. Now what? He got an idea. He gathered together those who still owed something to his master and asked them, "How much do you owe my master?" This being an agrarian society, what they owed wasn't money per se, but produce that they promised to deliver later after the harvest. 900 gallons of olive oil, one man replied. In today's market, that would be worth about $16,200 wholesale. "Take your bill, sit down quickly," he said, "and make it 450. That reduced this man's debt by $8,400. That was huge. The second man owed 1,000 bushels of wheat. Now that fluctuates quite a bit in today's market, but say at $5.19 a bushel, that would be worth $5,190 today. To this man, he said, "Take your bill and make it 800 bushels, saving him 200 bushels, which would be worth perhaps $1,038, maybe even more, when he got a chance to sell it later." When the master found out what his manager had done, he reacted strangely. He wasn't mad. Instead, he commended him for being shrewd, almost as if he was thinking, "Well, finally, he gets it. My manager may be smarter than he looks after all." The truth is, wealth has only one purpose, and that is measured by how it affects other people around us. There are different ways to interpret this passage. One is to consider how this system actually worked. Much like a tax collector book, back then, a business manager was a sort of middleman charged with the task of tracking and collecting debts that were owed. He was not really paid by his employer to do that. He was, however, free to add whatever he thought he could get away with to the bill. Therefore, perhaps all that this man was doing was really just giving up his own profit now, not stealing something from his master. By doing this, he was also making friends who might then become clients in the future, maybe even setting up a whole new business for himself. If that is the case, then this really was a shrewd investment on his part in his long-term future. But what if Jesus was talking about something else here that had nothing to do with prudent business practices? What if this is really an allegory that has to do with our own long-term planning for life eternal? If so, then the meaning of the opening scene changes quite a bit. The crisis is not about a man who is about to lose his job, but about a man who is about to lose his life. Or at least a man who was facing his own mortality. What shall I do now? That becomes an existential question, and more than just an economic setback. Death, or even just the idea of dying someday, is humiliating. It involves a total loss of control, if we ever thought we actually had any control over our own destiny anyway. What we plan no longer matters then, and what we have accumulated, even less so. This really is life as we know it. Life is a time of agency and responsibility and stewardship of what we have for a time. But then inevitably, that will all come to an end one day. Here then in this parable, the manager's dismissal becomes symbolic of his own impending death, which will eventually strip away from him any pretense of status or control or worldly identity. Figuratively speaking then, when that happens, he will no longer control the keys to the master's house anymore, nor will he be able to enjoy in the future any part of his former life. What then should he do? Or is there really anything to be done anymore when we are in this situation? What follows in this story can be seen as the means by which he relinquishes what was and embraces what will be. What he gives away was never his anyway. He was just a steward. The transactions that follow reflect the fact that the value of things was no longer important to him anymore. In that twilight between life and death, that is what becomes our new reality. Worldly wealth loses its grip, and eternal values begin to emerge. In that interpretation, this parable invites all of us to live right now in the light of eternity. The key to understanding this parable is found in verse 9, in which Jesus says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. The parable talks literally about forgiving earthly debts that people owe us, but allegorically, it is all about mercy and relational grace. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, so we often pray. We might just think of that as just creating friends who will owe us a favor. But actually, it also creates a fellowship of the forgiven and the forgiving that continues on into eternity. Seen in this way, whether you are talking about money or acts of forgiveness, this parable is really a call for all of us to live generously now, urgently and wisely in the face of death, trusting that God's mercy will then also open up for us the door to life eternal when that time comes. The verses that follow likewise take a scalpel to this story. Whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, Jesus says, meaning that our stewardship is going to be measured one day by our integrity in small things. It's not about the size of the task that we are given. It's about the heart behind it. Personally, I don't really think that this parable is about money at all. However, that said, if we use money in ways that harm others, then it is clear that we have no integrity, and we are not ready to become stewards of what God actually wants to give us most. What God really wants to give us isn't more stuff in this world. It is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are the fruits of the Spirit, which Paul talked about in the book of Galatians. And these are the things that create and enable life. By the time we get to verse 13, it becomes crystal clear that we are going to have to choose whether or not our life is going to be about God or gold. No one can serve two masters, Jesus said. You cannot serve God and money. If your quest in life is to acquire all the gold, then you will do whatever that requires of you, and probably hoard everything you can get. But if your desire is to serve God, then acquiring gold is always going to be secondary at best, and almost surely it will sometimes be more of a hindrance than a help when it comes to serving God. Richard Rohr, a Catholic scholar, once called wealth a source of disorder. He is probably right. But this really isn't about your pocketbook, is it? It's about what governs your heart. best to treat it so. The phrase, "oh, shiny," comes to mind. If our attitude in life is to gather that which is shiny and attractive in this life, then that might keep us from life's real blessings and keep us from ever being able to serve God as we should. Beyond all of that, I believe that who or what we choose as our master will create who we will be. The quest for gold tempts us to use others as just a means to an end and not as children of God. The quest for gold creates fear in us, not security. We will always be afraid that someday we might not have enough, or afraid of losing our status in the eyes of others if we lose it all. Whereas serving God requires our complete surrender and faith to his divine provision. God calls us to trust him, to give freely, and to live unbound by the anxieties of wealth, whether we have a lot or just a little. Let's face it, we have what we have only while we have it, and while we do, all we really are is just a steward of what was never ours to keep anyway. So we owe no allegiance to what we have, but only to the one who has provided it, who is the God of all creation. Therefore, serve God and store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. And maybe, just maybe, you might want to create some friends who will be up there too. All against that day, perhaps, when your time of stewardship is going to come to an end, as it surely will. And when you will have nothing left here anymore that ties you to this earth. As for me, I know whom I have believed. I am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I have committed unto him against that day. Be safe, and God bless you.